Indeed, my name is Marleen Onwezen, and it was very good pronounced. Wageningen University, very good. I heard it was very difficult for many people. I'm going to put it a bit lower. So today, I'm going to talk about the consumer side of the story. So how is it possible that consumer decisions sometimes look so irrational, though in essence are quite logical? And my passion is understanding why consumers behave in a certain way and trying to use that knowledge to support more sustainable and healthy decision making. And I want to ask you to start with thinking about the last time you made a good resolution. What was the last time you thought, I want to become a more healthy person, I want to become a more sustainable person, for example, on New Year's Eve or your birthday or maybe just another time? Just think about that last time.
You want to use this microphone?
Oh, it's better. Thank you. It's on. Is it working? Yes, thank you so much. And now think how long it lasted. Was it a month? A week? Maybe an hour? It's extremely difficult to follow your intentions. Sometimes it happens because someone invites you for a birthday treat or because you think you deserve it, because you just had a very difficult day and you deserve to treat yourself. And sometimes it even happens without knowing. You just find yourself eating what you always eat and think, damn, I had a good resolution. It's extremely difficult to follow these healthy and sustainable intentions. And today I'm going to talk about it. And the main topic I'm going to use is meat. That's one of the guilty pleasures a lot of us have. And it's one of the most impactful foods we have on the moment. So this is like 100 grams of beef. And producing this beef equals like 60 kilometers of driving if we put it in emissions. It equals a month of showers, like 6 or 7 minutes a day in water. It equals 2.5 kilos of animal feed. And it's related to food-related diseases, especially red and processed meat, and with all kinds of animal welfare issues. And we have this knowledge already for quite some time. For example, colleagues in the field who already stated in 2017 that this is one of the most impactful decisions you can make yourself. We already talked about intercontinental flying or having a child, less than one child, things like that equal this high impactful choice of having a more plant-based diet. For example, also stated in the IPCC that we really have to take these actions. Though at the moment, in all Western countries, we see that we have a very high meat consumption. And for example, in the Netherlands, it's 1/3 above the dietary guidelines. And it raised from the year 60 onwards, it's like a big increase in the consumption. For a large amount, because there are a lot of low and middle income countries that are consuming more and more meat, but also because the Western countries remain stable. Across all those years, we did not change anything in our meat consumption. And this is mainly the most impactful is obviously beef consumption, but also think about all the animal-based products which are often used as alternatives. So for example, prawns and cheese are often used as alternative, but these are also quite impactful on the environment. So that's about the facts. And we know these details, these facts already quite some time. But it's very difficult to change the behaviors. And how is that possible? Why are we not that rational? Why are we not developing an intention, weighing the pros and the cons, and starting to do it? Why are we so much influenced by the environment? Why are we developing all these intentions and influenced by all these factors in the environment that drive us to have these less healthy and sustainable lifestyles? In the literature, we know that this is occurring because we have two types of brains. On the one hand, we have this like green brain, which is slow, which is thinking and deliberate and really weighing the pros and cons. But that's only if occurring if we have the time, if we think it's important. But if we run through the supermarket, or if you do not have the time to make a deliberate decision, then the purple brain is taking over, and it helps you to make fast decisions. And it was already stated, we make 200 food decisions a day. You cannot make all these decisions deliberately. That's just not possible. So then the purple brain is helping you out, and it's making decisions very quickly on your gut feeling, and it's on intuition. And it's also about tastiness, hedonic pleasure, etc. And what we do as scientists is we try to understand what are the knowledge rules. Can we understand which drivers are working and how we can use these drivers to develop interventions and to support choices? I'm not going to detail into this model. I'm going to provide 4 examples today of interventions we developed and examples to show that consumers are not always rational, but that it makes sense. So the first one is about the intention-behavior gap. And I want to ask you a question. I'm going to put this one down. I want to ask you to raise a hand how important healthy and sustainable lifestyle for you is. All raise their hands. Yes, thank you. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. And keep it as high as you think important it is. If you think it's not that important, you can lower it a bit, but otherwise you can keep it very high. Now use your other hand. Yes? No. Keep this one up. Use the other hand too, both hands, stating how much you do. How much do you do to act healthy and sustainable? This is the intention-behavior gap. This difference between finding things important and the way you act, that's especially the intention-behavior gap. And that's what we also see in all kinds of figures. So we asked respondents how acceptant they are of fish, seaweed, pulses, and insects, and we compared that across the years. And we saw that they are not that acceptant and became a bit more acceptant over the years. Though if we compared it with their consumption, we saw no difference at all. So they became more acceptant, but it didn't translate in behavior. And we also checked what the predictability was, and we saw that these intentions only predicted less than 30% of the behaviors. So there's an enormous gap between what people say they want to do, what they think is important, and what they actually do. And another example of these gaps is about values. We have all kinds of values, and these are activated at different moments in time. We have hedonic values. This is about pleasure. This is about tasteful food. We have gain values. This is, for example, affordability or thinking about your well-being. We have moral values, for example, thinking about others, thinking about animal welfare, and social values, thinking about others around you and how your behavior is reflected. And what we see, this makes a lot of sense, is that sustainable behavior links to moral values. So if you're talking about eating less meat or smaller portions, it's very much linked to sustainable values. And now the interesting part, if we're talking about the purchase context, we see that all other values are highlighted. So at the moment of decision making, in the supermarket, in online or on the go, we see that hedonic values and gain values are activated. And this means that our food context triggers other values than the sustainable values, and that is especially made more difficult to act sustainable due to our current environment. The second example I'm going to talk about is about ignorance and value activation. I'm going to turn this around. So we did a research and we divided consumers in 4 different groups. We all know we are not the same, right? We have different types of consumers and these have different motives and values. And roughly we can distinguish 4 types of consumers. We have the indifferent consumers. These consumers just do not care that much about animal welfare or the environment. These values are not that important for them. We have a struggling group. They're thinking it's important, but they do not know how to deal with it yet, and they're working on it. We have a group which is coping already. They are, for example, the flexitarians or consumers that buy organic products. They already found ways to change their behavior to fit with their values. And I want to talk about the 4th group. This is a very interesting group. This is the strategic ignorant group. And these consumers have inner values. They think it's very important to act sustainable, to value animal welfare, to value the environment. But they decide to ignore these issues because they think it's just a lot of work. I don't know how to deal with it. I think it's a lot. I just decide to ignore these issues. And this is a very intriguing group because they really know this. If you ask these people, how many of you recognize this kind of behavior? No one? One. A few? Yeah. We see that people really admit this. It's just a strategy which is really working out for them, and it's obviously not working to provide more information for this group, because they just ignore it. But they do have these inner values, and we came up with an experiment to try to activate these values at the moment of decision making. So this is an experiment in a zoo, in a canteen in the zoo, and we included posters in the canteen. And the first poster is about this animal welfare values. We try to activate it at the moment. So do you consider animal welfare to be important? That was all it was. We do not say it is important, we just ask it. The second poster is about easy and price. So we know that it's very important to make it very easy and attractive to have a vegetarian option. So we try to make it more prominent and visible that it's an easy and attractive choice. And the third one is combining both of them. So who thinks that the animal welfare activation poster has the most impact? No one? Who thinks the easy, attractive condition has the most impact? Yes. And who thinks both? Okay, great. What we see in the control condition that about 4.7% is choosing the vegetarian option. And if we if we have the value activation, we see that the amount of purchases doubles. And that's really intriguing. We only asked the question, and the amount of vegetarian options chosen doubled. What we also see is that it is not, this is not significant. So the 6.5% is the same as the control condition. So the easy, attractive condition was not working. And the combined condition shows the same effect. So it's really about triggering these values, and it really results in a doubling of the vegetarian options. The third example I want to refer to is about changing the environment. So what we did, we had an experiment in a restaurant, and we changed the menu. We tried to use the behavioral mechanisms we know to change the menu in such a way that we made the vegetarian option more attractive. And what we did, there was a menu of the month. I'm sorry, the example is in Dutch. It's a menu of the month, and we have the same choice for everyone, but we differ the standard. It's called the default mechanism. So in the first week, the chicken wrap is the standard option, and there's a sentence below stating if you want a beans wrap, you can ask for it. And in the other week, it's turned around. So then the standard option is a beans wrap. And the sentence below is, if you want a chicken wrap, just ask it. So people have the same choice. They just have to ask. And in the third and the fourth week, we did the same thing with seaweed. That's a bit more innovative, a bit more scary for consumers. So we thought maybe it doesn't work in that week, or we want to assure that it was working for beans and seaweed. So what we see in the first week is that the chicken wrap is most often chosen. And in the second week, it really turns around. Just by making the default the beans wrap, most of the consumers choose the beans wrap. So you think you make your own decisions, right? And it also happened for seaweed. And this was really a restaurant which normally serves the steak of the day. It's not a restaurant which is already vegetarian, supportive environment. It's really a traditional restaurant. And we really saw good results. We also explored this in a different country, in Denmark, with a PhD, and we saw it especially works for meat lovers. Because the consumers that already are working on meat reduction, they make kind of conscious decisions, right? And the meat lovers are more sensitive to these changes. The final examples. In this example, we varied the cognition versus the affective messages. Yes. We had a lot of burgers with insects, and we varied the amount of insects in the burger. So some burgers were just real chicken burgers, and the chickens ate insects. So that was just kind of a chicken burger. And we varied like the amount of processing. So sometimes it was very processed, and sometimes the burgers showed very fresh insects in the burgers. And what we varied is the message on the package. So it's stating, feel good about yourself and choose the healthy alternative, versus research shows this is the healthy alternative. So in essence, it's the same message. It only varies in feels good and research shows. And what we see is that the feel-good condition shows a lot more respondents choosing the insect burger. So we often think that we should just explain and tell consumers that it's the right option to choose, though our researchers show that it's mostly about this gut feeling. And we also saw that it is more and more important the more insects were included. So the scarier, the more innovative it becomes, the more people are using their gut feeling. I'm going to skip this one due to time. I'm only going to state that we compared all these factors, and we saw that the social norms and the emotions are most important in understanding intentions of consumers to accept alternative proteins. So you're thinking you're making these individual decisions, though the social environment and how people around you behave is very much influencing your choices. And you're thinking you're making these cognitive deliberative decisions, though your emotions and gut feelings are very important in understanding the acceptance. So to conclude, we can identify these knowledge rules to understand consumer behavior, and it sometimes looks irrational, but we can explain it, and it does make sense, right? It is a very logical behavior. We just should not think it's logical to have these deliberative decision-making. And what I want to give with you is it's important to know that it's not, consumers can state that they have these intentions, but that's not stating that they're going to act upon it. We have to do a lot more to support their choices. For example, activating these values, changing the environment to make it more supportive, and to also use these emotional and affective roots. That was it. Thank you very much.